The turkey was flawless, skin crisp and golden, flecked with rosemary and thyme, resting in the center of my mother's antique oak dining table like it belonged on the cover of a holiday magazine. The china was polished, the silverware lined up with military precision, candles flickering between bowls of mashed potatoes and green beans. 18 people squeezed around that table. My parents, her parents, brothers, sisters, cousins, nieces, nephews, the usual loud Thanksgiving circus. And then there was one more. "Everyone," my wife Angela said brightly, stepping into the dining room with her hand resting comfortably on his shoulder. "This is Brandon. He's new to the area and doesn't have any family close by, so I told him he's spending Thanksgiving with us." Brandon looked to be mid-30s, dressed in a fitted sweater that probably cost more than my first car payment, hair perfectly styled, handshake firm and practiced. He had the kind of smile that suggested he'd spent most of his life being welcomed into rooms. "He works in my department," Angela added quickly, her tone light but just a little too eager. "I couldn't let him sit alone today." My mother clasped her hands together, instantly charmed. "Angela, that's so thoughtful. Brandon, welcome. We're happy to have you." Chairs scraped the hardwood floor as people shifted to make space. Someone passed him a glass of wine. My father asked where he was from. My sister offered him a dinner roll before he'd even sat down. I stood at the head of the table with the carving knife in my hand and looked at him. This man, this stranger. Except he wasn't a stranger to me. 3 weeks earlier, I'd followed Angela's car down I-70. I'd kept my distance, far enough back to avoid suspicion, close enough not to lose her in traffic. I'd watched her signal and pull into the parking lot of a Marriott off exit 47. I'd parked 2 rows over. At 7 p.m., I saw her step out of her car. At 7:03, he pulled in. At 7:05, they walked into the hotel together like they'd done it a dozen times before. At 11 p.m., they walked back out, laughing softly, his hand low on her back. And now he was standing in my mother's dining room, smiling at my father, complimenting the smell of the turkey. I set the knife down carefully beside the carving board and reached for my wine glass instead. "Before we eat," I said, letting my voice carry across the noise of overlapping conversations and clinking glasses, "I'd like to say a few words." The chatter faded. Forks paused mid-air. My mother smiled at me proudly. Angela's expression froze for half a second before she forced it back into place. Brandon lifted his glass, relaxed, unaware. I looked around the table slowly, at my parents, who raised me to believe that honesty wasn't optional, at her parents, who thought their daughter had married a dependable, steady man, at the cousins who'd driven 2 hours in traffic to be here, at Benson, our golden retriever, lying under the table hoping for scraps. Then I turned to Angela and let a small smile form. To new faces at old tables, to coworkers who go the extra mile, who show up when it matters. Angela's grip tightened around her fork, her knuckles blanched white. And to the truth, I continued evenly, lifting my glass a little higher, which has a funny way of surfacing eventually, even when it's been tucked away in a Marriott off exit 47 for the last 3 months. Silence. Not the polite pause after a toast, real silence, the kind that sucks the oxygen out of a room. I swear I could hear the cranberry sauce shift in its bowl. Brandon's smile collapsed, the color drained from his face so quickly it was almost impressive. Angela's lips parted, but no words followed. My mother's eyes flicked between us, confusion spreading. My father slowly lowered his glass to the table with deliberate care. "Son?" he said quietly. I didn't look at him. My eyes stayed locked on Brandon. I set my wine glass down and folded my hands in front of me like I was about to begin a presentation at work. "Tell me something, Brandon. How exactly do you know my wife? If you want to know what happened when I played the security footage on my phone right there at the dinner table, hit subscribe, because what came next made her mother faint. My name is Nathan Cross. I'm 38 years old, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a civil engineer by trade. I design bridges, overpasses, stretches of highway that thousands of people drive across without giving a second thought to who made sure they wouldn't collapse. It's practical work, structured, logical. You calculate loads, account for stress points, reinforce weaknesses before they turn into failures. I've built my entire career on anticipating cracks before they spread. I thought I'd done the same with my life. Angela and I had been married 7 years. We were high school sweethearts who drifted apart after graduation, then reconnected at a 10-year reunion. She was just as magnetic as I remembered, confident, sharp, able to command a room without raising her voice. We dated 3 years before I proposed. We married on her parents' farm under a white tent strung with lights, surrounded by cornfields and summer air. It felt solid, certain. We bought a house in the suburbs, 2-car garage, quiet street. We adopted a golden retriever and named him Benson. Sunday dinners rotated between our parents' houses. Every summer we drove to the Outer Banks and rented the same beach house. On the surface, it was textbook stability, but paper doesn't show fractures beneath the surface. About 6 months ago, I noticed the first shift. Angela began staying late at the office more frequently. Big campaign, she'd text around 8 p.m. Don't wait up. She worked in marketing for a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, and deadlines weren't unusual. But this was different. It wasn't just the hours, it was her energy when she came home. She'd walk in distracted, distant, drop her purse, head straight for the shower. Afterward, she'd sit on the couch with her phone angled just slightly away from me, a small private smile tugging at her lips. "Good day?" I'd ask. "Mm-hmm," she'd reply without looking up. That smile, it used to be mine. Then came the shift with her phone. Angela had never been secretive. It used to sit face up on the kitchen counter, notifications lighting up the screen. Suddenly, it was always face down, always locked, always within reach. One morning, I asked if I could borrow it because mine had died and I needed to check an email. "Use the laptop," she said quickly. "It's upstairs. Your phone's right here."
She picked it up before I could touch it. Battery's almost dead. She left the room with it in her hand. That was the moment something inside me settled into certainty. Not suspicion, certainty. I'm not a jealous man. I don't go digging through messages, but I'm also not blind. I started observing patterns. The late nights were consistent, mostly Tuesdays and Thursdays. New dresses appeared in the closet. A perfume I'd never smelled before lingered in the air. She angled her body away when she typed. One night, I waited on the couch until nearly midnight. When she walked in, she startled at the sight of me. "How was work?" I asked. She kicked off her heels. "Long." "What campaign are you working on again?" She hesitated just a fraction too long. "It's a diabetes drug launch." "What's it called?" "Nathan, why are you doing this?" "I'm asking about your job." "It's late. I'm exhausted." She went upstairs without answering. The next morning, I called in sick. I told my boss I had food poisoning. Then I followed her when she left for work. She didn't go to the office. She drove 20 minutes north to a Starbucks in Mason. I parked across the street and watched through the window. 15 minutes later, a man walked in. Mid-30s, dark hair, expensive coat. Brandon. They sat together. She laughed. He reached across the table and touched her hand. She didn't pull away. I stayed in that parking lot long after they left, staring at the steering wheel, my mind oddly calm. The engineer in me took over. Emotion wouldn't solve this. Documentation would. I installed a discreet GPS tracker under her car, tucked inside the wheel well. I hated myself for it, but I needed clarity. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern confirmed everything. Tuesdays and Thursdays, her car would appear at the same Marriott off I-70, exit 47. I drove there one evening and saw them arrive separately and leave together in everything but name. I contacted a divorce attorney the following day, Richard Moss, methodical, direct. "Circumstantial evidence isn't enough," he told me, after reviewing the GPS data. "You'll need something concrete." So I hired a private investigator. Carla was efficient and blunt, a former cop who didn't waste words. I gave her names, schedules, addresses. 10 days later, she called. "I've got what you need." We met at a diner near my office. She slid a thick folder across the table. Inside were photographs. Angela and Brandon entering the hotel, standing close in the parking lot, kissing beside his car. One image showed them through a partially open curtain in a hotel window, intimate enough that there was no possible misinterpretation. I stared at that photo for a long time. One photo showed them through a hotel window. The curtains were open just enough. I didn't look at that one for long. "There's more," Carla said. She handed me a USB drive. Video, audio from the hotel lobby. Timestamps match your GPS logs. I stared at the drive. Is this enough for a divorce? Yeah. For leverage? Absolutely. I paid her the balance, thanked her, and then I sat in my car and cried. Not because I was heartbroken. I'd already mourned the marriage. I cried because I finally had the truth. And the truth, as ugly as it was, set me free. I didn't file for divorce right away. I know that sounds strange, but I had a plan. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. Angela's family was hosting. My family was coming. It was going to be the usual big gathering. 18 people, too much food, the kind of day where everyone pretends everything is perfect. And then I realized this was my moment. Not to humiliate her, not to blow up the family, but to control the narrative. Because if I filed for divorce quietly, she'd spin it. She'd play the victim. She'd tell everyone I was controlling, jealous, unstable. But if I revealed the truth in front of everyone, calmly with evidence, there'd be no spin, just facts. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Angela came home excited. "So there's this guy at work, Brandon. He's new to the area, doesn't have family nearby." I looked up from my laptop. Okay. She was thinking maybe we could invite him to Thanksgiving. I'd feel bad knowing he's spending it alone. I stared at her. The audacity was breathtaking. "Sure, why not?" I said. She smiled. "Really? You don't mind?" "Not at all. The more the merrier." She kissed my cheek. "You're the best." I smiled back and started planning. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up early. I'd barely slept, not from nerves, from anticipation. I went for a run, came back, showered, and got dressed. Angela was in the kitchen prepping side dishes to bring to her parents' farm. "You seem chipper," she said. "It's Thanksgiving. What's not to love?" I smiled. "I'm glad you're in a good mood." "Me too." I loaded the car while she finished getting ready. In my jacket pocket, I had a USB drive, the same one Carla had given me. On it, photos, videos, timestamps, everything I needed. We arrived at her parents' farm at noon. The house was already full. Her mom, dad, 2 sisters, a brother, their kids. My parents showed up 20 minutes later with my brother and his wife. The usual chaos. Hugs, laughter, kids running around, dogs barking. And then, at 1 p.m., the doorbell rang. Angela practically sprinted to answer it. "Everyone," Angela announced, leading Brandon into the dining room. "This is Brandon. He's new to the area, doesn't have family nearby, so I invited him to join us." Brandon smiled, shook hands, played the part perfectly. "Brandon works in my department," Angela added. "I couldn't let him spend Thanksgiving alone." My mother's face lit up. "How thoughtful, Angela. Welcome, Brandon." Everyone made room, pulled up an extra chair, poured him a drink. I stood at the head of the table, carving knife in hand, and watched this man, this stranger who'd been sleeping with my wife, sit down at my family's table. And I smiled. Dinner was served. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, the works. Everyone dug in. Conversation flowed. Brandon charmed my mother with stories about his job. Angela laughed at his jokes. A little too loud, a little too long. I ate in silence, waiting. Finally, my father stood. "Before we get too full, I'd like to say a few words." He raised his glass, gave the usual Thanksgiving speech. Gratitude, family, health. Everyone clinked glasses. Then I stood. "Actually, I'd like to add something." Angela looked up surprised. "Nathan?" "Just a quick toast," I said, smiling. I picked up my wine glass. The room quieted. "First," I began, "I want to thank Angela's parents for hosting. This meal is incredible, as always." Her mother beamed.
"And I want to thank everyone for being here. Family is everything." Nods around the table. "I also want to welcome Brandon." I turned to him. He raised his glass, smiling. "It's so generous of Angela to invite a coworker to Thanksgiving to make sure he wasn't alone." Angela's smile was tight. "In fact," I continued, "Angela's been spending a lot of time with Brandon lately. Late nights at the office, working on big projects." Her face paled. "She's been so dedicated, so committed." I looked around the table. Everyone was listening now, which is why I wanted to take this moment to acknowledge just how much effort she's been putting in. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone. "Angela, you've been working so hard, I thought everyone should see." I opened the photo gallery and held up the phone. The first photo was Angela and Brandon in the hotel parking lot holding hands. The room went silent. Angela's fork clattered to her plate. "Nathan!" I swiped to the next photo, them kissing by his car. Her mother gasped. I swiped again, them entering the hotel. "Nathan, stop!" Angela's voice cracked. I looked at Brandon. "Tell me, Brandon, how do you know my wife?" His face was white. He didn't answer. I turned to the table. "Because according to these photos taken over the last 3 months, they know each other pretty well." Angela stood up. "This is insane!" "Is it?" I swiped to a video, hit play. Hotel lobby footage, timestamp visible. Angela and Brandon checking in. Her father's face went red. "Angela, what the hell is this?" "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" I asked calmly. "That you've been having an affair? That you brought your lover to Thanksgiving and introduced him as a coworker?" Brandon stood up. "I should go." "Sit down," my father said. His voice was still. Brandon sat. Angela's mother started crying. Her sisters stared, mouths open. My mother looked at me. "Nathan, is this true?" I nodded. "I hired a private investigator. I have 3 months of evidence. Photos, videos, GPS logs." I set the phone on the table. "It's all here if anyone wants to see." No one moved. Angela's voice was shaking. You've been spying on me." "I've been documenting your affair. There's a difference. This is humiliating." "For who?" I asked. "Me or you?" She looked around the table at her parents, her siblings, my family. Everyone was staring at her. "I think," I said, quietly, "you humiliated yourself." Brandon tried one more time. "Look, I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" I interrupted. "That she was married? She wears a ring. Or she used to." I looked at Angela's hand. "Bear, when did you stop wearing it?" She didn't answer. 3 months ago," I said, "right when the affair started." Her father stood up. "Angela, is this true?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Tears started falling. "Dad, is it true?" She nodded. Her mother sobbed. I picked up my phone, pocketed it. "I've already filed for divorce," I said. "The papers will be served next week." Angela's head snapped up. "What?" "I'm not doing this here. I'm not making this messier than it needs to be. But I wanted everyone to know the truth." I looked around the table. "I'm sorry this ruined Thanksgiving. That wasn't my intent, but I wasn't going to sit here and pretend everything was fine." I turned to Brandon. "You should leave." He stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked out without a word. Angela followed him. "Brandon, wait!" The door slammed. The room was silent. My father cleared his throat. "Son, are you okay?" I nodded. "I will be." My mother stood up, walked around the table, and hugged me. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Angela's father looked at me. "Nathan, I'm sorry. I had no idea." "Neither did I said, "until I did." He nodded. "If you need anything—" "I'll be fine," I said, "but thank you." I left 20 minutes later, drove home in silence. When I got there, Angela's car was already in the driveway. I walked in. She was sitting on the couch, crying. "How could you do that?" she sobbed. "In front of everyone." I set my keys down. "How could you bring him to Thanksgiving?" She didn't answer. "You wanted to humiliate me," I said. "You wanted to parade your lover in front of my family and make me look like a fool. That's not—" "It is," I interrupted, "and I wasn't going to let you." I walked upstairs, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing. "Where are you going?" she called. "Hotel," I said. "I'll be back for the rest of my stuff next week." "Nathan, please!" I stopped at the door. "You made your choice, Angela. Now you get to live with it." I left, and I didn't look back. The divorce took 4 months. Angela tried to fight it, tried to claim I'd humiliated her, that I'd violated her privacy. Her lawyer argued that the GPS tracker was illegal. Richard shut that down. Ohio is a one-party consent state, and the car was in my name. She tried to claim emotional distress. Richard presented the evidence of the affair. In the end, she got nothing. No alimony, no house, just her car and her shame. Brandon, by the way, got fired. Turns out the company had a policy against workplace relationships. Angela had to find a new job. I heard she moved to Cleveland, started over. I hope she's happy, I really do, but I don't think about her much anymore. A year later, I was at a coffee shop when a woman walked up to my table. "Nathan," I looked up. "Yeah? I'm sorry to bother you. I'm Emily. I was at that Thanksgiving." I blinked. "Oh, you're Angela's cousin." She nodded. "I just wanted to say what you did took guts, and I'm sorry for what she put you through." "Thanks," I said. She hesitated. "Can I buy you a coffee?" I smiled. "Sure." We talked for 2 hours. 6 months later, we were dating. A year after that, we were engaged. And this Thanksgiving, we're hosting. Just us, my parents, and her family. No surprises, no drama, just honest people at an honest table. If this story hit home, comment, "Truth wins." If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever had to stand up for yourself in front of everyone, if you've ever chosen dignity over silence, this one's for you. Hit subscribe for more stories about the quiet power of truth, because the best revenge isn't making a scene.